Okay, I'd like to test the volume. It looks like it's working. And now let's test the video. Video also looks like it's working. Make a couple of adjustments here. We're using some new technology today just to be a little bit more efficient so you guys can hear me. So I'll go ahead and share screen. It looks like everything's working just fine. Now, let's see. Now, to make sure, I'm concerned that you might not be able to hear me because I'm not getting a good signal on my sound. So let me pause the recording. It will be okay. Now, let's try this again. Just want to make sure we get it right. Okay, so you and I are on a student view of the COLS 1010 Web Section 5 screen. And if we scroll down to the news, we see that there are a few announcements for today's chat session. First of all, we will be doing Cornell notes. I will reserve that until the end of the session. Second of all, there's a reminder that you need to see your success coach or your advisor for your graduation plan. Those individuals do not work with you for the service hours project. Service hours project information is here on the September 12th Career Service Project documents. I have a link to volunteer opportunities. If you are having a difficult time locating a service partner, you can click on this link and click on the link of the county in which you live or in which you spend most of your time, and you should be able to click on that and see an array of opportunities listed here. These individuals and businesses are very aware of the service learning opportunities involved with Tennessee Promise. And the good news is the service learning opportunities that we will have for you in our course will double as your Tennessee Promise hours. So that's very, very good news. So those locations are listed in the service learning website, and the link is right here in the Career Service Project documents announcement. Let's see what else we have. If you have not gotten your Strong's inventory results back, please email our supervisor, Nancy Hamilton, at roanstate.edu to receive those results. She can actually go in and manually send you your results if you have not received them. Please don't retake the assessment because it costs us $10 per assessment. So if you have taken it and you just didn't get the results, email her. She's very quick to respond. And then the last announcement is that the PowerPoint that I will be using for today's lesson is attached to the news in case you need to go back and review it again after our video. So let's continue on and minimize out of this and get started on Cornell notes. Now, of course, 2-column notes vary from instructor to instructor. Cornell notes also vary from instructor to instructor, but this is a very generic application. This training has been provided to Rome State students, Mississippi State students, high school students, instructors at the secondary and post-secondary levels. So I'm very familiar with this version of Cornell notes, and when you have an instructor who modifies it, it's modified based on their particular content area and the areas that they value the most. So let's go ahead and talk about what's the one thing. Memories are stored in your brain and in my brain as pictures. So when you look at this photograph of a birthday cake, it should connect this new picture, this new information to something you have experienced in your past. That memory is stored in this file cabinet in your brain as a photograph. Now, there are a couple of things that come to mind when I see this picture. One of the things is chocolate cake. Every year for my birthday, my mom would make me a chocolate cake. Chocolate cake is my most favorite thing in the whole wide world. The other thing I remember is how the letters of these types of birthday candles melt and deform the letters, and how the wax from those candles lands on the chocolate and cools. And I always wondered if it was poison to eat those candles, to eat the wax from those candles. So that's how this brand new picture connected to a memory that I already had in my brain. Oh, excuse me. So how do we get information or it into our brains? Well, we must see it, hear it, say it, process it in our own words, and write it. For each of these functions, we create, so to speak, a different little wrinkle in the brain. So the more brain activities that we put into motion with information, the better our chances of getting it into our brains. For example, we remember 90% of what we say and do. Now, if we just write it down, we're not saying it or doing it. It has to process through our brains. So you have to see the information, hear yourself say it. So you have to say it to yourself, write it in your own words so that you own it, and then you have a much better chance of remembering that information. Plain and simple, you have to see it. You have to hear it, even if you are the one saying it. When you read, it's really important to hear your own voice say what you see, and then you have to do something with it. And when you write it down, you're doing something with that information. So if I were teaching this in a full-blown class, I would show this video and I would ask you to take notes while you listen to Inky Johnson's video, and be able, by the end of the video, to define commitment. Okay, so what I would have done if you were in a regular class is I would have asked you to define commitment. And one of the lessons I like to incorporate with note taking is that when you take notes to a video, or you take notes to a lecture, or you take notes from a textbook, you cannot get everything down. You have to have some idea of what you're looking for. And usually your instructor will give you a clue as to what you are looking for. Now, commitment, according to Inky Johnson, is staying with what you said you were going to do long after the mood you were in when you said it has gone. That's huge for college. That's huge for human beings, because you are not going to feel like doing this every day. You are not going to feel like reading. You're not going to feel like posting. You're not going to feel like studying, but you made a commitment. And your commitment has to be dependent on that other person inside you who will force you to do it, like your inner guide that we discussed in our class. So just remember that the commitment is all about whether or not you do it after the mood has left you, when you felt like doing it. So you have to keep doing it even when you don't feel like doing it. Okay, so metacognition is how we think and process information on purpose. And one of the reasons why I am so excited about Cornell Notes is because metacognition, the thinking about thinking, the direction that we give our brains when we learn, is centered on muscle memory. And Cornell Notes, if done appropriately and correctly, they create that muscle memory and they strengthen that muscle memory. And people who think that they weren't very smart, and people who think they can never take notes, and people who think that they couldn't learn certain material, suddenly began learning material because of metacognition. Now, metacognitive strategies are about working your brain on purpose to understand and learn, not just by reading and writing, but yes, at least by reading and writing. When you read or you watch, do you predict? Do you visualize? Do you question? Do you think aloud, connect, summarize, and reflect? Just like when we first started with the picture on this lesson, you could have connected from a prior memory so that it became more relevant for you. Those are all habits of learners. Now, consistent note-taking provides continuing development of mental and cognitive skills. So literally, you can get smarter by note-taking. Now, there's a science behind why the right kind of note-taking works and why the wrong kind of note-taking doesn't work. And your brain learns through the cerebral cortex. There's actual physical activity going on in your brain when you learn. And either your brain is learning, growing, or it's dying. It's plasticity versus decay, which means your brain becomes more flexible and more pliable with experiences, or it dwindles and decays and goes into a state of atrophy. When neurons meet in the brain, they collide in synapses, and that's a connection, an experience inside the nerves. And when that synapse takes place, nerves exchange information. That is called synaptogenesis. That's when learning can take place. So let me give you an example about the neural pathways in the brain. Let's say that we're going to skip our class at Roane State, and we're going to walk down to Midtown, and we're going to eat at, I'll see, it's quite a bit of a walk. There's a little barbecue place that's pretty close. The first time that we walk through the front lawn, and this is what it looks like a meadow. But if we take that same path 2 or 3 or 4 times over the course of a month, what happens to the grass? The path starts to get beaten down. And if we continue on that exact same path over and over and over, eventually we begin to have a dirt pathway that's more defined, the way to the barbecue place. And then if we continue doing it enough times, and we do it without thinking anymore because it's become habit. It's become part of muscle memory. Pretty soon we don't even have to think about how to get to the barbecue place from Wayne State. It just happens because we've done it so many times. We've used muscle memory. Well, that's how learning is. That's how note-taking is. That's how metacognition is. If you do it so many times over and over and over, and you take those steps and you work yourself through those skills and those strategies, pretty soon it becomes like muscle memory. It becomes a habit. And the next thing you know, you're not having to tell your brain to do these things. You're just doing it because you have muscle memory. So the one thing that students need, all the college professors I know have had this discussion more than once. It's not money, it's not time, and it's not wisdom. The one most important skill students need in college is note-taking. How do I take notes? How do we do it? Well, great teachers, great instructors, great professionals model note-taking. They let you know what they want. They expect you to take notes. It's never an option to take notes, and they require you to take notes. Why do we take notes? To create a permanent record of important information, to provide a study guide or a reference tool, to engage the student, or to write to learn or learn in the moment. And all of those things can be true, but just because you're writing words down on your paper does not mean that these things are happening. Most students take notes by writing every word from the board or every word the instructor says, or they sit there and do nothing, dazed and confused. And this is what happens. Then the teacher calls on you and you have no idea what they're talking about. So you use some of those big words that you may not always fully understand in an effort to make yourself sound more photosynthesis. Foolish. Cornell notes are structured and comprehensive notes. Main points go on the left-hand column. Important facts go on the right-hand column. At the very bottom, you have a summary, reflection, or a critical question. Some instructors will have you answer an essential question as part of the activity, and the essential question is given to you at the beginning of the lesson, so that's recorded at the top. The bottom line is you're doing the work of taking information from a book or a lecture or a video, and you're separating out the main points and the details. Well, how do we do that? Well, I have links to this PowerPoint on how to do this specifically in science classes and math classes, but I wanted to walk you through what Cornell notes literally look like. So the first thing that you do is you write a T on your page. This has an I because this is the last step, but you draw a T and you set up the page with name, title, date. The main points or the broad categories go on the left-hand side. The notes or the important facts go on the right-hand side. The summary will go at the end of the notes, not at the end of the page, but at the end of the notes. And so as you go through the lesson, you will toggle back and forth between main points and important facts. When you go through these main points, you are setting the purpose for your reading. You're going to survey. You're going to look at the textbook headings. You're going to look at the subheadings, the words in bold. You're going to turn all of those into a pre-reading question. What is this chapter about? Why am I reading this chapter? All of those headings and main points go on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're reading and recording meaningful facts, keywords and ideas, important dates, people and places, repeated information, brainstorms, webs, we work out problems, diagrams and pictures, formulas, all of the details and the thoughts that support the main points go on the right-hand side. Then we reduce. This is a crucial part of taking notes. We take those main points, categories, and concepts, and we develop test questions. How do we do that? I have a format called 6 W's and an H. So for anything that you read, you see, you hear, you should be able to ask who, to whom, what, when, where, why, or how. So any main point, if you put who, what, when, where, how, to whom, or why in front of it, the answer should be over here in the notes. So the way this becomes a perfect tool is that you can literally cover the notes on the right-hand side to quiz yourself and answer questions. And then at the end of your notes, you write a reflection, a summary of how this material relates to the lesson of your notes that are in your own words, not the chapter, not what the teacher said, but what you put in notes. So what happens is you fold your paper over so you don't see what's on the right-hand side. You use those main categories or vocabulary words or words that are in bold, and you ask the questions who, to whom, what, when, where, why, how, okay? Every prompt will not be answered, but for each reading, at least some of those who, to whom, what, when, where, how, why can be answered. And then when you do this, your answers are on the right-hand side. So that's the magic of Cornell Notes. Just to review again. So once you fold the paper over, there's a margin of folded paper between the left-hand and the right-hand column, separating the main points and the important facts. Ask questions using the main points, and then you unfold to show the answers. Pretty soon your brain will start asking the questions who, to whom, what, when, where, why, and how without you realizing it, because you will have developed muscle memory for active reading strategies. This is a list of the steps in a list form in case you're not a graphic person. So as far as the metacognitive processes, thinking aloud, walking yourself through it, talking to the text, thinking of ways that you can relate a personal experience or something that you have read or something that you have seen on television to the text, that's forcing your brain to think about what you're reading, summarizing, predicting, connecting, questioning, visualizing, and reflecting. All of these are metacognitive processes that are the keys to learning. Some people say they can't take notes because the professors talk too quickly, they cannot write that fast or type that fast, the teacher didn't tell me to take notes, I don't know what to write down. But if you take Cornell notes, you know what to write down, you know what to listen for. And it's exhausting in the beginning. But if you take Cornell notes and you use Cornell notes, you will develop a strong muscle memory and you will become a better learner. You will find that you have to study less because you are actually employing your brain while you take notes. You're learning in the moment. So eventually, you develop strong muscle memory when it comes to taking notes and learning, and things don't get easier. You learn how to do hard things. So that's all I have on Cornell Notes. That was a very quick and dirty version of Cornell Notes, but I think for the web class, it will be helpful to you. If there's anything else I can help you with, you just send me an email and we'll be all set. Thanks so much and have a great week. Keep working hard. We're almost halfway there. Remember, your notebooks are not going to be due until after fall break, so you'll have time over fall break to get your notebooks all organized. Thanks so much. Have a great night.